The air in the attorney's office was conditioned to a precise 70 degrees, yet I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the thermostat. It was a coldness that started in the marrow of my bones and radiated outward, a familiar sensation that I had spent the last 30 years learning to ignore. I sat in the high-backed leather chair, my posture straight, my hands folded neatly in my lap. Underneath those hands, resting against the dark fabric of my slacks, was a manila envelope. It was thin, unmarked, and sealed with a strip of red wax that bore the impression of my mother's signet ring. Across the mahogany desk, Mr. Henderson shuffled a stack of papers, the sound of the friction between the sheets echoing loudly in the silence. He was an older man, wearing glasses that slid down the bridge of his nose, and he looked tired. Probate law was rarely about justice. It was about administration, about sorting the belongings of the dead and distributing them to the living according to documents that were often written in haste or anger. My mother, Eleanor Vance, had not written her will in haste. She had written it with precision, with malice, and with a clarity that left no room for interpretation. My brother, Mark, sat to my right. He was wearing a suit that cost more than my monthly rent, tailored to hide the slight softness around his midsection that came from too many business lunches and not enough work. He was tapping his foot, a nervous tic he had had since childhood, though now he masked it by checking his phone every 30 seconds. He believed he had won. He believed that the game was over, that the final score had been tallied, and that he was the victor. He was wrong. The game was only just beginning, and I held the final card. Mr. Henderson cleared his throat, adjusting his glasses before looking at us over the rim. He began to read, his voice monotone, reciting the legal incantations that transfer ownership from the dead to the living. I listened to every word. I did not need to hear them to know what they said, but I needed to hear them spoken aloud to confirm the reality of the betrayal. When he reached the section regarding the distribution of the estate's residual assets, he paused. He looked at Mark, then at me, and then back down at the paper. He stated clearly that 100% of the remaining estate, including the family home in Connecticut, the investment portfolios, and the liquid cash accounts, were bequeathed solely to Mark Jonathan Vance. There was no mention of me. There was no sentimental piece of jewelry, no small sum of money, no acknowledgement of my existence. I was erased. In the eyes of the law, and in the final judgment of the woman who gave me life, I was nothing. Mark let out a breath he had been holding, a sound that was half sigh, half laugh. He leaned back in his chair, the leather creaking under his weight, and crossed his arms over his chest. He looked at me then, a smile playing on his lips. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a predator that has finally cornered its prey. He didn't say anything. He didn't have to. The silence was loud enough. He wanted me to beg. He wanted me to ask why. He wanted me to cry, to show the emotion that he knew lived beneath my calm exterior. He wanted me to validate his victory by showing him my defeat. I did not give him the satisfaction. I kept my face smooth, my breathing even. I simply tightened my grip on the envelope in my lap. The wax was cool against my palm. I could feel the ridges of the ring impression. My mother had given this to me 3 weeks before she died. She had called me to her bedside when Mark was out of the house, buying groceries or perhaps buying something else. It didn't matter. She had been weak then, her skin translucent like parchment paper, her hands shaking. But her eyes had been clear. She had handed me the envelope and told me not to open it until Henderson read the official will. She had told me that Mark would try to take everything. She had told me that he was incapable of managing it, and she had told me that I was the only one who could fix it. She had not apologized for excluding me from the will. She had not explained why she was putting me through this public humiliation. She simply gave me the tool and told me to do my job. That was my mother. Love was not expressed in warmth. It was expressed in utility. I was the fixer. Mark was the beneficiary. It was the dynamic of our entire lives, codified in law. I stood up when the reading was finished. I thanked Mr. Henderson for his time. My voice was steady. I did not look at Mark. I walked out of the office into the bright sunlight of the afternoon. The air outside was warm, a stark contrast to the cold room I had just left. I walked to my car, a sensible sedan that I had paid for in cash, and I sat in the driver's seat for a long time. I did not start the engine. I looked at the envelope. I knew what was inside. I had not opened it because I did not need to. I knew what my mother had planned because I knew how her mind worked. She was a woman who controlled everything from beyond the grave. She did not trust Mark with the money, but she also did not trust me to take it without a fight. She wanted to see if I was worthy. She wanted to see if I had the strength to claim what was rightfully mine without her having to explicitly give it to me. It was a test. It was always a test. I put the envelope in the glove compartment and locked the car. I drove home to my apartment in the city. It was a small space, organized with military precision. There was no clutter. There was no evidence of chaos. I poured myself a glass of water and sat at my kitchen table. I opened my laptop. I did not cry. I did not scream. I opened a spreadsheet. I am a forensic accountant. My job is to look at numbers and find the lies hidden within them. People think numbers are objective, that they are truth. They are not. Numbers are stories told by people, and people lie. My brother had been lying for years. My mother had known it. I had known it. Now, it was time to make sure everyone else knew it too. To understand why I was not angry, you have to understand the history. You have to understand the architecture of the house we grew up in. It was a colonial in Greenwich, large and imposing, with white columns and a lawn that was always perfectly manicured. My father died when I was 10. He was a quiet man, a teacher who loved us both equally. When he died, my mother changed. She became harder. She became focused on legacy, on status, on ensuring that the Vance name remained prominent. Mark was 4 years older than me. He was charismatic. He could talk his way out of anything. He broke a window. He charmed the neighbor. He failed a class. He convinced the teacher it was a misunderstanding. I was the opposite. I was quiet. I observed. I fixed things. When Mark broke the window, I saved my allowance to pay for it before my mother found out. When Mark failed the class, I tutored him so he could pass. I thought that if I was useful enough, if I was good enough, she would love me. I thought that if I protected the family, I would be part of it. I was wrong. Usefulness is not the same as love. In my mother's eyes, I was a tool. Mark was the heir. Tools are replaceable. Heirs are essential. I spent my childhood watching Mark consume resources. He took the best room. He took the new car when he turned 16. He took the money for college, which he used to join a fraternity and travel to Europe. I took the loans. I worked 2 jobs. I studied accounting because I wanted to understand where the money went. I wanted to understand the mechanism of our family so that I could never be vulnerable to it again. When I graduated, I got a job at a top firm in New York. I moved out. I sent money home when my mother asked. I visited on holidays. I kept my distance. Mark moved back home 5 years ago. He said he was starting a business. A consulting firm. He said he needed the home office. He said he needed access to the family accounts to get capital. My mother gave it to him. She gave him power of attorney when she was diagnosed with early-stage dementia. She said she trusted him. She said he was her boy. I knew what was happening. I saw the bank statements when I helped her with her taxes. I saw the withdrawals. I saw the transfers. Mark was not starting a business. He was funding a lifestyle. He was gambling. He was drinking. He was drowning, and he was pulling my mother down with him. I tried to tell her. I sat in the same house, in the living room with the velvet curtains, and I showed her the numbers. I showed her the deficits. I showed her the pattern. She looked at me with eyes that were clouded by medication and denial, and she told me that I was jealous. She told me that I wanted to control her life because I couldn't control my own. She told me to leave, so I left. But I did not stop watching. That is the thing about betrayal. It does not happen all at once. It is a slow erosion. It is the way a river cuts through a canyon, drop by drop, year by year. By the time you notice the depth, the damage is already done. When my mother died, Mark was the one who found her. He was the one who called the police. He was the one who stood at the funeral and accepted the condolences. He wore black. He looked somber. He played the part of the grieving son perfectly. People came up to me and said, "I'm so sorry for your loss." They looked at me with pity. They knew I was the daughter who lived away. They knew I was the one who wasn't in the will. The gossip had already started. I could see it in their eyes. They wondered what I had done to deserve this. They wondered if I was ungrateful, if I was cold. They did not know that I had paid for her hospice care out of my own pocket when Mark stopped answering the calls from the facility. They did not know that I had reviewed her medical bills and found the errors that saved the estate $10,000. They did not know anything. They only saw the surface. And Mark relied on the surface. He relied on the narrative that he was the golden child and I was the distant stranger. He thought that narrative was enough to protect him. He thought that the will was a shield, but a will is just a piece of paper. It is only as strong as the integrity of the people involved. And Mark had no integrity. I knew this. My mother knew this. That was why I had the envelope. I spent the next week working. I went to my office. I looked at spreadsheets for clients who had lost millions to fraud. I understood their pain. I understood the feeling of being violated by someone you trusted. But I also understood the solution. The solution was not emotion. The solution was evidence. I took a personal leave of absence. I told my boss I had a family matter to attend to. He did not ask questions. He knew better. I drove back to Connecticut. I did not go to the family home. Mark was there. He had changed the locks, of course. He had sent me a text message saying that I needed to remove my personal belongings from the basement within 48 hours or he would donate them. It was a power move. He wanted to assert dominance. He wanted to show me that I was a guest in his house now. I did not respond. I went to a hotel nearby. I set up a temporary office in the room. I ordered coffee. I opened my secure files. I had been gathering data for 2 years. I had copies of bank statements, email correspondence, medical records, and property deeds. I had them because I was the one who managed my mother's taxes. I had access. I had not stolen anything. I had simply retained copies of documents that were legally mine to see as a potential heir before the will was probated. Now that the will was probated, my status was complicated. But I was not acting as an heir anymore. I was acting as an auditor. I began to cross-reference the dates. I looked at the power of attorney document that Mark had filed. It was dated 6 months before my mother's death. I looked at the medical records from that same period. My mother's neurologist had noted significant cognitive decline. She was not competent to sign legal documents. The power of attorney was void. If the power of attorney was void, then any transactions Mark made using that authority were fraudulent. If the transactions were fraudulent, then the assets he claimed were actually stolen from the estate. And if the assets were stolen, then the will could be contested on the grounds of undue influence and financial abuse. This was not an emotional argument. This was a mathematical one. I laid out the papers on the hotel bed. I used red pen to circle the discrepancies. Transfer 1, $50,000 to a shell company called MV Consulting. Transfer 2, $30,000 to a casino account in Atlantic City. Transfer 3, $20,000 for a luxury vehicle leased in Mark's name but paid from my mother's account. The total was over $200,000. That was just the liquid cash. There was also the house. He had refinanced the mortgage without her signature, forging her name. I had the handwriting analysis ready. I had hired a private specialist 3 months ago when I first suspected the forgery. I paid him in cash. He did not know who I was. He only knew that the signature on the mortgage deed did not match the signature on the driver's license from the same year. The slope was wrong. The pressure was wrong. It was a forgery. I had everything I needed. I had the motive, I had the means, I had the opportunity, and I had the envelope. I waited. This was the hardest part. The urge to act immediately was strong. I wanted to walk into Mr. Henderson's office and slam the papers on his desk. I wanted to see Mark's face when the police arrived. But revenge is not about speed. It is about timing. If I acted too soon, Mark would have time to hide assets. He would lawyer up. He would drag the process out for years. I needed him to feel secure. I needed him to spend money he didn't have. I needed him to commit to a lifestyle that relied on the inheritance being clean. I needed him to be arrogant, so I did nothing. I sent a text to Mark. I said, I accept the terms of the will, I will not contest. It was a lie, but it was a necessary one. He replied within minutes. Good, don't make this difficult, Piper. She made her choice. I deleted the message. I did not save it. I did not need it. I didn't need his confirmation. I needed his actions. Over the next month, I watched him. I watched his social media. He posted pictures of a new boat. He posted pictures of a trip to the Hamptons. He posted about his new consulting venture, claiming he had secured major capital. He was leveraging the inheritance before the probate was even fully closed. He was borrowing against the future. This was good. It meant he was overextended. It meant that when the collapse came, it would be total. I also contacted Mr. Henderson. I did not tell him about my plan. I simply asked him a hypothetical question. I asked him what the procedure was if new evidence regarding the testator's competency came to light after the initial reading. He told me that the probate could be reopened. He told me that if fraud was proven, the assets could be frozen and returned to the estate. He told me that the beneficiary could be held personally liable. I thanked him. I hung up. I was building the trap. I was letting Mark walk into it willingly. The second meeting was scheduled for 6 weeks after the first. It was standard procedure to sign the final distribution papers. Mark expected it to be a formality. He expected to sign a check and walk away. He wore the same suit. He smelled of expensive cologne. He sat in the same chair. He looked at me with a mixture of pity and disdain. He thought I was coming to beg for a handout. He thought I had accepted my place at the bottom of the hierarchy. Mr. Henderson looked nervous. I had sent him a package earlier that morning. It contained the evidence: the forensic report, the handwriting analysis, the medical records. I had given him time to review it before we sat down. He knew what was coming. Mark did not. He started the conversation. He said, "Let's get this over with. I have a lunch meeting." He reached for the pen. I placed my hand on the envelope in my lap. I spoke for the first time. "Not yet," I said. My voice was quiet, but it filled the room. Mark looked at me. "What?" he asked. I said, "Not yet," I repeated. "There is a matter we need to address before distribution." Mark laughed. "There is no matter. The will was read. You're not in it. Go home, Piper." I looked at Mr. Henderson. "Mr. Henderson, please read the attached addendum to the file." Henderson swallowed. He picked up the folder I had sent. He opened it. He began to read the summary of the forensic audit. He listed the transfers. He listed the dates. He listed the medical assessment of incapacity. Mark's face changed. The smile disappeared. The color drained from his cheeks. He looked at me. "What is this?" he demanded. "This is a record of your financial activity during Mother's period of incapacity," I said. "It shows that you misappropriated funds. It shows that you forged her signature on the mortgage refinance. It shows that you are not fit to receive the estate." Mark stood up. He slammed his hand on the desk. "You're lying. You're trying to steal from me. She left it to me." I remained seated. I did not raise my voice. "She left it to you in the will," I said. "But the will was executed under undue influence. And even if it wasn't, you have already stolen from the estate. You are liable for restitution. If you proceed with the distribution, I will file a civil suit for fraud. I will notify the bank. I will notify the authorities. You will lose the money, and you will likely face criminal charges." Mark was shaking. "You can't do that. You're my sister." "I am the executor of the trust," I said. This was the lie that mattered. I was not the executor, but he didn't know that. He only knew I had the evidence. He looked at the envelope in my lap. "What is that?" he asked. "That," I said, "is the codicil." I lifted the envelope. I broke the wax seal. The sound was sharp in the quiet room. I pulled out the paper. It was a letter written in my mother's hand. It was dated 2 weeks before she died. It was witnessed by a nurse and a notary. It stated that if Mark was found to have misused funds prior to her death, the entire estate would revert to a charitable trust, with me as the trustee. It was a poison pill. She had known he would take the money. She had known he would fail. She had set the trap, and I was the trigger. Mark read the letter. His hands were trembling so badly he could barely hold the paper. He looked at me. "She hated me," he whispered. "No," I said. "She loved you, but she loved the truth more, and she knew I would protect it." The silence that followed was heavy. It was the sound of a world shifting on its axis. Mark sat back down. He looked defeated. He was not looking at me as a brother anymore. He was looking at me as a judge. He realized that he had lost everything. The house was gone. The money was gone. The reputation was gone. Mr. Henderson spoke up. "Mr. Vance, in light of this evidence, I cannot proceed with the distribution. I am required to freeze the assets pending an investigation." Mark looked at him. "You're siding with her?" he asked. "I am siding with the law," Henderson said. Mark stood up again. He looked at me. "You planned this," he said. "You planned to humiliate me." "I planned to restore order," I corrected. You created the chaos. I am simply cleaning it up." He walked to the door. He stopped with his hand on the knob. "You think you've won?" he asked. "You think money makes you better than me?" I looked at him. "No," I said. "Integrity makes me better than you. And you have none." He left. He slammed the door. I sat there for a moment. I listened to his footsteps fading down the hallway. I listened to the silence return. I looked at Mr. Henderson. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now," he said, "we initiate the trust. The assets will be liquidated. The debts will be paid. The remainder will go to the charity specified in the codicil. You will be paid a fee for your services as trustee." I nodded. "And Mark, he will be pursued for the fraudulent transfers. He will have to repay the estate. If he cannot, he will face litigation." It was over. The revenge was complete, but I did not feel joy. I did not feel happiness. I felt relief. I felt the weight of the past lifting off my shoulders. I had spent 30 years carrying the burden of my family's dysfunction. I had spent 30 years trying to fix what was broken. Now, it was fixed. Not because I had forgiven them, not because I had found peace with them, but because I had removed them from my life. I had cut the cancer out. I walked out of the office. The sun was setting now. The light was golden, casting long shadows across the street. I walked to my car. I did not check my phone. I did not look for messages from Mark. I knew what he would say. He would beg. He would threaten. He would try to guilt me. I would not listen. I started the engine. I drove away from the town where I grew up. I drove past the house. It looked smaller than I remembered. The white paint was peeling. The lawn was overgrown. It was just a building. It was not a home. It never was. I drove until I reached the highway. I merged into traffic. I was surrounded by other cars, other people, other lives. I was anonymous. I was free. I thought about my mother. I thought about the envelope. She had given me the power, but she had made me use it. She had made me be the one to destroy her son. Why? Because she knew I was the only one strong enough to do it. She knew Mark would destroy himself eventually. She wanted to make sure I was not destroyed with him. It was not love. It was survival. And I accepted that. I accepted that my family was capable of great cruelty, and I accepted that I was capable of great justice. I did not need their approval. I did not need their love. I had my own respect. That was enough. The weeks that followed were procedural. The trust was established. The charity was a foundation for women in finance, a cause my mother had supported quietly for years. Mark tried to fight it. He hired a lawyer. He claimed I had coerced him. He claimed the codicil was fake. But the evidence was overwhelming. The handwriting analysis held up. The bank records were indisputable. The medical records confirmed his incapacity. He lost. He was ordered to repay the $200,000. He did not have it. He had to sell the boat. He had to sell the car. He had to file for personal bankruptcy. He lost his job when the news of the fraud became public. No one wants to hire a consultant who steals from his dying mother. He moved out of the family home. It was sold. I did not buy it. I did not want it. It was sold to a young couple who wanted to raise a family there. I hope they make better memories than we did. I heard through the grapevine that Mark moved to Florida. He was living in a small apartment. He was working in sales. He was alone. I did not reach out. I did not send money. I did not offer help. He was an adult. He had made his choices. He had to live with the consequences. That was the condition of our existence. Actions have consequences. For years, Mark had been exempt from them. I had restored the balance. I returned to my life in the city. I went back to work. I took on new clients. I found more fraud. I exposed more lies. I was good at my job. I was satisfied with my work. I moved to a new apartment. It was larger. It had a view of the park. I bought a new chair. I sat in it in the evenings. I drank tea. I read books. I did not think about the past. I did not think about the will. I did not think about the envelope. It was done. But sometimes, late at night, I would think about the moment in the office. The moment the wax broke. The moment the power shifted. It was a quiet moment. There was no shouting. There was no violence. There was just the truth. And the truth was heavier than any weapon. I realized then that revenge is not about hurting the other person. It is about healing yourself. It is about reclaiming the power that was taken from you. It is about standing up and saying, "No more." I had said no more, and the world had listened. There are people who say that holding on to anger is poison. They say you should forgive and forget. They say you should move on. I disagree. Forgiveness is for people who are sorry. My brother was not sorry. My mother was not sorry. They were sorry they got caught. They were sorry the consequences arrived. Forgiving them would have been an act of self-betrayal. It would have meant saying that what they did was acceptable. It was not acceptable. It was wrong. And acknowledging that wrong was the only way to move forward. I did not hold on to anger. I held on to standards. I held on to boundaries. I held on to the truth. That is not poison. That is medicine. It cleanses the wound. It prevents infection. It allows you to heal. I was healed. I was whole. I was not defined by my family anymore. I was defined by my actions. I was defined by my integrity. One evening, I received a letter. It was from Mark. It was handwritten. The handwriting was shaky. He asked for money. He said he was hungry. He said he had nowhere to go. He said he was my brother. I read the letter. I held it in my hand. I felt the paper. I thought about the envelope I had held in the lawyer's office. I thought about the weight of it. I thought about the responsibility. I put the letter in the drawer. I did not throw it away. I did not burn it. I kept it. It was a record. It was evidence of where he was. It was evidence of where I was not. I did not send money. I did not write back. I closed the drawer. I turned off the light. I went to bed. I slept soundly. I did not dream. The story of my family is not unique. There are many families like mine. There are many mothers who choose favorites. There are many brothers who take without giving. There are many sisters who are expected to clean up the mess. But not every sister fights back. Not every sister holds the envelope. Not every sister breaks the wax. It requires courage. It requires patience. It requires a coldness that many people are afraid to embrace. They want to be nice. They want to be liked. I decided I did not want to be liked. I wanted to be respected. I wanted to be safe. I wanted to be free. And I achieved that. I achieved that by understanding the rules of the game and playing them better than anyone else. I used their weapons against them. I used the law. I used the money. I used the truth. And I won. Sometimes people ask me if I regret it. They ask if I wish I could have had a different relationship with my mother. They ask if I wish Mark and I could have been close. I tell them no. I tell them that I wish things had been different, but I do not regret fixing them. I do not regret protecting myself. I do not regret choosing myself. It is not selfish. It is necessary. You cannot save someone who does not want to be saved. You cannot help someone who does not want help. You can only save yourself. And once you are saved, you can help others. I help others now. I advise women who are in similar situations. I tell them to keep records. I tell them to get legal advice. I tell them not to be afraid of the conflict. I tell them that the conflict is already there. They are just pretending it isn't. I tell them to open the envelope. I tell them to break the wax. I tell them to take what is theirs. The world is not fair. It is not just. It is a system of power. And power must be checked. If you do not check it, it will consume you. My mother consumed me for 30 years. She took my time. She took my energy. She took my love. I gave it willingly because I thought it was my duty. I thought it was what daughters did. I was wrong. It was not duty. It was exploitation. And I ended it. I ended it with a piece of paper and a plan. I ended it with logic. I ended it with control. I did not lose my temper. I did not lose my mind. I kept my cool, and that is why I won. Anger makes you sloppy. Anger makes you visible. Calmness makes you invisible. Calmness makes you dangerous. I was dangerous. I was a threat to their narrative, and I destroyed the narrative. Now, when I walk down the street, I feel different. I feel lighter. I feel grounded. I know who I am. I know what I am capable of. I know that I can handle anything. I can handle betrayal. I can handle loss. I can handle the truth. I am not afraid of the dark anymore. I am not afraid of the silence. I am not afraid of being alone, because I am not alone. I have myself. And that is the only company I need. The envelope is gone now. I deposited the contents into the trust. The paper was filed. The wax was dust. But the feeling remains, the feeling of holding the power. The feeling of knowing that I am the author of my own life. No one else writes my story. No one else decides my worth. I decide, I decide, I decide. The seasons changed. Winter came. Snow fell on the city. I watched it from my window. It covered the streets. It covered the cars. It made everything white and clean, it hid the dirt. But I knew the dirt was there. I knew the world was messy. But I also knew that I could navigate it. I could find my way through the snow. I could find my way through the lies. I had a compass. It was my integrity. It pointed true. It always pointed true. I followed it. I followed it to this place. I followed it to this moment. I am here. I am safe. I am free. And I am ready for whatever comes next, because I know how to handle it. I know how to hold the envelope. I know how to break the seal. I know how to read the truth. And I know how to live with it. There is a specific kind of peace that comes after a war. It is not the peace of absence. It is not the peace of nothing happening. It is the peace of resolution. It is the peace of knowing that the battle is over and you are still standing. You are scarred, perhaps. You are tired, certainly. But you are standing. And you are looking out at the landscape that you have secured. That is where I am. I am standing on the ground I reclaimed. I am looking at the horizon. And I am not looking back. The past is dead. My mother is dead. The old dynamics are dead. Only the future is alive. And the future is mine. I built it. I built it with numbers. I built it with laws. I built it with silence. I built it with strength. And it is solid. It will not collapse. It will not fade. It will endure. Because I built it to last. I think about the women who will hear this story. I think about the ones who are sitting in their own kitchens, holding their own envelopes, afraid to open them. I want to tell them that it is okay to be afraid. Fear is natural, but do not let fear stop you. Do not let fear decide your future. Open the envelope, read the truth, face the betrayal, and then take action, not out of anger, not out of spite, but out of necessity, out of self-preservation. You deserve to be safe. You deserve to be respected. You deserve to be paid. You deserve to be in the will. And if you are not, you deserve to know why. And you deserve to fix it. Do not wait for someone else to do it. Do not wait for justice to come to you. You must go to justice. You must demand it. You must take it. It is yours. It belongs to you. No one can give it to you. You have to claim it. I claim it. I claim my life. I claim my history. I claim my future. I am Piper. I am 30 years old. I am a forensic accountant. I am a survivor. I am a victor. And I am done. The story is over. The narration is complete. The voice is silent. But the impact remains. The impact remains in the trust fund. The impact remains in the bankruptcy filing. The impact remains in the empty house in Connecticut. The impact remains in the brother who lost everything. The impact remains in the sister who gained herself. That is the legacy. That is the inheritance. Not the money, not the house. The self. The self is the only thing that matters, and I have it completely, and I will never let it go. The sun rises again, another day, another opportunity to maintain the order I created. I wake up. I make my bed, I make my coffee, I check my emails, I go to work, I live my life. It is simple, it is quiet, it is mine, and that is enough. That is more than enough, it is everything. I sit in my chair, I look at the window, I see the light. I breathe, I am here, I am real, I am free. The envelope is empty, but I am full. I am full of purpose. I am full of clarity, I am full of power, and I will use it wisely. I will use it to protect. I will use it to build. I will use it to live. This is the end of the story, but it is the beginning of the life. And I am ready. I am ready for anything, because I have already faced the worst. I have faced the betrayal. I have faced the loss. I have faced the truth. And I survived. So I can survive anything. I know that now. I know that with absolute certainty. And that knowledge is the greatest revenge of all, to live well, to live true, to live free. That is the goal. And I have achieved it. I have achieved it. I have achieved it. The memory of the lawyer's office fades. The smell of the leather fades. The sound of the paper fades. All that remains is the feeling. The feeling of control. The feeling of certainty. The feeling of justice. It is a cold feeling. But it is a clean feeling. It washes over me. It cleanses me. It prepares me. I am ready for the next chapter. I am ready for the next challenge. I am ready for the next battle. Because I know how to fight, I know how to win, and I know how to walk away. That is the secret. That is the key. Know when to fight, know when to win, know when to walk away. I fought, I won, I walked away. And now I am here, and now I am free, and now I am me. The voice in my head is quiet now. It is not the voice of my mother. It is not the voice of my brother, it is my voice. It is clear. It is strong. It is mine. I listen to it. I follow it. I trust it. It tells me what to do. It tells me where to go. It tells me who I am, and I believe it. I believe it completely. Because it has never lied to me. It has never betrayed me. It has never failed me. It is the only truth I have, and it is enough. It is more than enough. It is everything. So I sit here, I breathe, I exist. I am, and that is the story. That is the whole story, from the will to the freedom, from the betrayal to the balance, from the pain to the power. It is done. It is finished. It is over. And I am still here. I am still here. And I am okay. I am more than okay. I am whole. I am whole. I am whole. The city hums outside. The traffic moves. The people walk. Life goes on. It always goes on. But my life is different now. It is my own. It is not defined by them. It is defined by me. I define me. I define my worth. I define my value. I define my future. No one else. No one else can do that. No one else has the right. I took the right back. I took it with the envelope. I took it with the evidence. I took it with the law, and I keep it. I keep it every day. I keep it every hour. I keep it every minute. I am the guardian of my own life, and I am a strict guardian. I do not let anyone in who does not respect the rules. I do not let anyone take what is mine. I do not let anyone dim my light. I protect it. I protect me, and I will continue to protect me. Until the end. Until the very end. And when that comes, I will be ready. I will have no regrets. I will have no unfinished business. I will have no debts. I will have paid everything. I will have taken everything. I will have lived everything. And I will be satisfied. That is the promise. That is the vow. I will be satisfied because I fought for it, because I earned it, because I deserve it. And I know it, I know it, I know it. The script is done. The words are spoken. The voice is silent, but the message remains. Stand up, fight back, take control, be cold, be smart, be safe, be free. That is the way. That is the only way. Everything else is noise. Everything else is distraction. Everything else is a trap. Do not fall for it. Do not fall for the guilt. Do not fall for the pity. Do not fall for the lies. Stand firm, stand tall, stand strong, and hold the envelope. Hold it tight. Do not let go. Do not open it until you are ready. But when you are ready, open it. Break the seal. Read the truth, and change your life. Change it forever. Change it for the better. Change it for you because you are worth it. You are worth the fight. You are worth the win. You are worth the freedom. Believe that. Believe it now. Believe it always. And live like it. Live like you are worth it. Because you are, you are, you are. I sit in the silence. I listen to the quiet. I feel the peace. It is real. It is tangible. It is mine. I hold it. I keep it. I cherish it. It is the greatest gift I have ever received. Greater than the money, greater than the house, greater than the inheritance. It is the gift of self, the gift of autonomy, the gift of power, and I will never give it away. I will never sell it. I will never trade it. It is non-negotiable. It is absolute. It is final. And I am grateful. I am grateful for the pain. I am grateful for the betrayal. I am grateful for the struggle, because it led me here. It led me to this moment. It led me to this truth. It led me to myself. And I would not change it. I would not change a thing, because I am here, and I am free, and I am me. And that is all that matters. That is all that ever mattered. The rest is just noise. The rest is just history. The rest is just dust. But I am real. I am here. I am now, and I am free, 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 free.